What is going on, college sports fans? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about the most recent college sports conference realignment rumor that has been going around, and that is that the UConn Huskies are going to join the Big 12 Conference for basketball in 2026 and for football in 2032. So this is very interesting news, and I'm going to break it down if I think it's going to happen, kind of the pros and cons about it, and also what teams the Big East could pick up as their own kind of realignment and expansion to kind of either replace UConn or add a multitude of teams to kind of help bandage that a little bit, because that is a big loss there for the Big East if UConn does decide to leave. So I'm ready to get started. I just want to say subscribe if you guys are new. Hit that like button if you guys enjoy, and let's get right into it. All right, so here are kind of the pros for UConn joining the Big 12 here in 2026. So the Big 12 does pay each of their members over $30 million a year just for being in the conference. It's like their TV rights deal, so that's kind of a big deal compared to the Big East, who is purely basketball, which does affect that total, and they are making $9 million a year. So big jump there for UConn. They are going to be profiting a lot more money. That is the first pro of joining the Big 12. Also, super conference in basketball. The Big 12 is already considered to be the SEC of basketball. They are so stacked, and adding another blue blood team, yes, UConn is a blue blood. I know it's a debate. I don't know why it is, but adding another blue blood to this conference and a team that is the reigning back-to-back national champion will obviously only help the Big 12 become an even better basketball conference. Also, another pro for UConn joining the Big 12 helps their football program a ton. Yes, their football program won't be coming until 2032, but right now they are a Division I football program that is trying to build that up, and they are an independent team right now. So it wouldn't be too hard for them to join as a football conference coming from an independent. That kind of means they're a free agent. They're in the same boat as like Notre Dame. So for if they wanted to, they could join a conference. But yeah, UConn gets into a conference for football. That would help their program tremendously. Also, they'd be safe in a Power 4 conference. You know, just in case something did ever happen to the Big East, I don't think it will. They're a very awesome basketball conference that so many people love, including myself. But they will be safe in a Power 4 conference and be able to grow their football program like I mentioned before. Also, the ACC could be in trouble soon. The ACC, a lot of people are kind of predicting a future for them similar to what happened to the Pac-12, where it kind of dispersed when some of the top brands left, like USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. Everything else kind of fell apart right after. So if Florida State, Clemson, Miami, some of these bigger brands do decide to up and leave, that leaves teams like North Carolina, Duke, Pitt, all awesome additions to the Big 12 and really bolster this Big 12 conference into being a super conference for basketball. And really the main con for UConn joining the Big East Conference is you're losing all those really good rivalries and kind of history that UConn has had in the Big East Conference with all of these teams that are in there. I love UConn in the Big East, but I think they are going to join the Big 12. I think that it makes a lot of sense for them just as far as building their program up, making sure they are safe in a power conference, and just earning more money. That's really what it comes down to. Also growing their football program and joining the best basketball conference in the Big 12, I think would be huge for UConn. I'd love to see UConn join this conference. I think that it would be amazing. I want the Big 12 to become like the SEC of college basketball, which they are already kind of there, and I think that this would be a tremendous move for both the conference and for UConn. Another slight pro is that there are two former Big East teams already in the Big 12 that UConn does have some history with, and that is Cincinnati and West Virginia. They are both former Big East members and are on that East Coast. And if the ACC does disassemble and just turn into what the Pac-12 did, then there are going to be more East Coast teams in the Big 12 as well, to where they can make a separate division on the East Coast for the Big 12. That would be a huge plus as well. And before we get into some teams that the Big East could possibly pick up to kind of expand on their conference if UConn does decide to leave, I want to talk about if any team could possibly be leaving with UConn. The big rumor out there is that possibly Villanova could be go ahead and trying to get into the Big 12 with UConn. We see a lot of these things happen in pairs. Texas and Oklahoma, when they left the Big 12 to the SEC, they went together. USC and UCLA, when they first decided to leave the Pac-12 for the Big 10, they went together. So is UConn kind of looking for that partner? And if so, the obvious choice, in my opinion, would be Villanova. I don't think that this is going to happen. I'm going to leave this real quick because I don't think that this will happen. I think that if UConn does decide to join the Big 12, I think it will be kind of a solo thing. I don't think they're going to bring Villanova with them or try to get Villanova in with them, because I just don't think with their football program being Division II, it's not like UConn. UConn is Division I, but they're independent. Villanova's football program is a Division II program. I don't think they're going to make that jump, so it would have to be purely for basketball, which I think purely for basketball, Villanova would be obviously a huge pickup for the Big 12, but I just don't see it happening. I think if this does happen, UConn will be coming solo. The teams that I think the Big East should try to pick up, and honestly, even if UConn doesn't decide to leave, I still think that they should look at expanding their conference to maybe a couple of these teams, because these are programs that I believe that are on the rise, are good basketball teams and basketball programs that the Big East should definitely consider. So the first one is Loyola Chicago. I think Loyola Chicago already kind of has that name brand built up from their Final Four run, and they've been pretty consistently good since then as well, year in and year out. And I think capitalizing on that would be huge. And it's kind of a similar situation to what the Big East likes to do. They like to go out and grab these teams in these big cities. Loyola Chicago, obviously in Chicago, and they do have DePaul. DePaul is also in Chicago, but I don't think that that stops them from trying to go out and get Loyola. Not only has DePaul been bad and hasn't really been pulling much viewers from Chicago anyway, because they haven't been good recently, but that also creates a natural rivalry there between the two Chicago teams across town. That would be great for the conference. I think adding Loyola would be my number one get if I am running the Big East Conference. The next team I want to talk about is the Dayton Flyers. Dayton is another team that has been really good in basketball recently. I think would fit this conference really good. You have Xavier, who's not far from Dayton. It's going to be an in-state battle, and I just feel like that would be an awesome pickup there for the Big East as well. Also, another team like Loyola Chicago that has just been really good year in and year out, that would be a great addition for the Big East Conference. The next team I want to talk about, they haven't had as good of teams as Dayton and Loyola Chicago in recent history, but not too long ago, Wichita State was a really good basketball team every single year. There was a year where they were a 1 seed in the March Madness tournament, and I think Wichita State would be also a really good pickup for this Big East Conference. Now, I want to talk about a couple of them that I feel like are kind of questionable decisions here for the Big East to make for different reasons. I think Loyola Chicago, Dayton would be the top two options for sure if I'm the Big East looking to expand. Wichita State would be another pretty good option, but these other two I've been seeing kind of floating around there. I think wouldn't be bad decisions, but they definitely have their concerns. And the first one is trying to get Gonzaga to the Big East. It just doesn't make sense. You know, we do have teams like Creighton, who is in Nebraska, who's kind of not on the East Coast, and teams in Chicago, Milwaukee, with Marquette and DePaul. But you don't really have teams all the way on the West Coast. Your furthest west is Creighton, which is in Nebraska in the Midwest. So adding a team like Gonzaga, who's in Washington State, would kind of be a big question mark. And if you do add a team like Gonzaga from the West Coast Conference, I think that would be a situation where they try to get a partner to come with them, and if they do, that partner is clearly going to be St. Mary's. If St. Mary's does come with Gonzaga, yes, you're getting two really good basketball brands that are in March Madness every single year, and for Gonzaga's case, they're a top 4 seed every single year, if not a 1 seed, but you have two teams, one in California, one in Washington State, in a conference called the Big East. I'm just not sure. Of course, you had the ACC, which is the Atlantic Coast Conference, adding teams like Stanford and Cal. So I guess all cards are kind of off the table for this situation, but I just think the Big East kind of values that a little bit more. And the other team that I think is kind of questionable joining for a different reason is St. Louis. I think it makes a lot of sense. Like I mentioned earlier, the Big East does like to go out and grab these teams that are kind of in the bigger cities, and St. Louis is more so around that Midwest to East Coast area there in Missouri. So and St. Louis has been a pretty decent basketball program. That's the only thing. It's a new city that would be a good market for them to get. It is kind of in that region where they do add teams from, but has St. Louis been good enough as of late? They've been pretty good, but have they been good enough to be able to join a conference like the Big East? That's where I'm not sure, so that is where my concern with St. Louis is. I think that they would be able to grow their team, obviously recruit a lot better if they were to join a conference like the Big East, so I don't think it would be a bad pickup, but I think the two top options for Big East expansion should be Loyola Chicago and the Dayton Flyers. But let me know what you guys think, guys. I think UConn, it makes a lot of sense for them to join the Big 12, and I think it makes a lot of sense for the Big 12 to try to add them. I'm interested to hear from the UConn fans themselves what they would like to do. Would they rather join the Big 12 or would they rather stay in the Big East? I think that they're most likely going to join the Big 12 at the end of the day, starting in 2026 with basketball and in 2032 with football, like the rumor is saying. I think that this is going to happen. I think the Big East should definitely consider looking at Loyola Chicago and Dayton for expansion, and I'm interested in hearing your guys' thoughts. But that is going to do it for this one. Let me know what you guys think, and yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching.